RV owners, just like you like to breathe freely, your RV air conditioner wants to breathe too. If your air conditioner can't breathe and move air through it freely, it's not going to cool very well. Just like if you can't breathe freely, you're not going to live very well. So today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to keep your RV air conditioner, condenser, and evaporator coils clean and make sure that it is breathing well and doing what it is supposed to do, which is keeping you cool. Now, first things first, you are going to have to remove the upper shroud from your air conditioner so that you can access everything. So all of this is going to be on your roof. So if you're not comfortable being on your roof, this video probably isn't for you. Now today, to make things easy, I've got this one down here on a bench where I'm not on a roof and the sun is not beating down on me today. So it's a perfect day for this. Now we'll start with the back of the air conditioner, which is the condenser coil. This is usually the one that gets dirty the fastest. A lot of pollen and cottonwood and things like that like to stick in here. Dust, depends on what type of environment you're in. But this is usually going to be the dirtiest. Now the inside evaporator coil can also be filthy, especially if you have pets, pet dander, if you guys smoke in your units. Definitely don't recommend that. The screens and filters that are on these things don't filter it really at all. So the evaporator coil takes a beating from the inside. This takes a beating from the outside environment. Now the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and get rid of all of that dust that's in there. If there's a bunch of cottonwood, this one actually isn't that bad. This is a unit that I pulled off. This is a bad unit, but a great example unit. So if there's any cottonwood or nasty stuff in here, that's what you're working on here to get that stuff out first. If you happen to have compressed air handy, be careful with it. You don't want to damage any of the fins, but you can use this to actually clean out a bunch of the nasty stuff as well, especially along here down in this channel where this brush isn't going to really get you anywhere. As you can see, I was able to get quite a bit of nasty gunk out of the bottom there. Now, while you're doing this, again, be careful. You don't want to bend any of these fins. The more bent fins, the less airflow, which means the less efficiently your air conditioner is working. Now, you may come across and see that there are already some bent, which is where these guys come in. These are fin combs. So you're going to find the correct one or the correct spacing and comb your fins to kind of straighten them back out. Fun fact, you can get this whole AC maintenance thing as a kit. I'll link it on my Amazon storefront if you want to check it out on my website, thatrvtech.com. Super handy, and these are also really cheap. But if you don't want the combs, honestly, any medium bristle brush, even some stiff bristle brushes, will be just fine for getting in between those fins and sweeping out all that dirt. Now is the time you're going to be cleaning it. And cleaning it is the most important part because there's stuff that gets all in between those fins that that brush can't get. And I'll be honest with you, brushing them out and getting the cottonwood out is at least a step. So if that's all you can do and you don't have the other equipment or cleaners to get the rest of it, but you're out camping and notice it's all blocked up full of cottonwood, at minimum, get all of the dust and blockages out of here. But the next step will be actually cleaning the coils. Now I use a bulk solution because I do these all the time. So I buy this stuff by the gallon. You can buy it in spray cans, you can buy one-time use stuff, you can buy the foam. I don't really have a preference. I really think it all works the same. But essentially, you're just going to soak your coils. Now, if you have the foam, some of them will tell you they have more dwell time, some of them don't. Be careful what product you're using too, though. If they're too acidy, you don't want them getting on your roof membrane. Remember, this stuff's going to be running off. We're going to be rinsing this out, although there are some products that claim they are no rinse. I wouldn't really trust those too much because you're just breaking the dirt loose and then never really washing it away. So it's not my first recommendation is the rinse-free options. And just get yourself a liberal amount in there. And remember, you're trying to get in between the fins. So keep a solid motion like this so that you're getting between them and you're not just spraying the surface of the coil. And then we're just gonna hurry up and wait. Let that stuff dwell. Read the bottle you're using. Every product's gonna be different on how long they want you to let it sit, or if it even does have dwell time, but now we're gonna let that sit and dwell so that it can soak and break everything loose. Now the next step after dwelling is going to be rinsing. Now I've got a little portable pressure washer thing I usually bring up on the roof with me. It's a little guy here, but you can use a garden hose, you can use whatever source of spraying water that you have and just rinse the thing down. Once it's rinsed off, I'm a little bit extra. I'll actually blow them back out again. I really like to make sure that I get everything out of there. And then that part is done. If you have a severely dirty condenser that hasn't been cleaned in a while, go ahead and do it again, you know, spray it down and rinse it again just to be sure. But I like to do a flashlight check. If you take a flashlight and shine it through the back, verify lights coming through, you can do that. A lot of times you can just stick your head down there and see if you can see some light through it. Again, this one wasn't too dirty to begin with. I've seen some of yours out there. They're dirty, so you might have to do this twice. Now, before we move on to the evaporator coil, if you see a bunch of dust and debris and stuff built up in your air conditioner here, get rid of it. Clean it out, vacuum it out, blow it out, whatever tools you have, even if it's just your hands. Try and get any nasty, gunky stuff out of here. And if you see any nests or anything like that, make sure you get rid of those too. Now, the evaporator coil is going to be housed up here in the front housing, and there are some screws you're going to have to remove to access that along this top cover here. It's going to depend on what type of air conditioner you have. Like a Dometic is going to be a little different with a styrofoam cover you have to remove. Check your air conditioner's manual and see what the process is of accessing this. Most of the time it's pretty obvious. It's either going to be screws covering this housing, or again, a big styrofoam block you'll have to remove. But either way, we'll get all these screws out. There's going to be some tape as well, so you might want to have some HVAC tape handy, and maybe you can do a better taping job than they did, because the more air you can keep in here, the better. You don't want it mixing with warm air. I'll actually show you that at the end, a little tip for keeping this sealed up nicely. Now that we have the 1,000 screws removed, we can actually remove this cover. Before we go anywhere, I want to warn you that once you access this cover, you'll likely also be accessing your capacitors. Now, whether the power is on or not, those capacitors can still hold a charge. So you're going to want to keep your hands away from this area, because again, those capacitors can hold a charge that can light you up. So don't stick your hands anywhere near here. Again, there should still be that one screw I just removed to access the cover, but once you open the top, you'll have access to it in there. Stay out of that area. We can now access the evaporator coil, or the coil that circulates the inside air. This is the one I was telling you, like cooking oils and pet dander and dust, and if you smoke in your unit, which I don't recommend, will block this one up, so you need to pay attention to this one too. Oftentimes when I see AC maintenance videos, we're only talking about the condenser coil, but the evaporator coil is just as important, if not more important, to keep clean. The other issue with not maintaining or cleaning this is as it builds up at the bottom, all that dirt and gunk, it will actually start to block the weep holes. If you've noticed when your RV air conditioner is running, there's water dripping off the roof. That's the condensation it is removing. So if you have this blocked up and the weep holes get blocked up, the water is going to want to go inside the unit because it has nowhere else to drain. As a matter of fact, if you look, here's the coil right here. If you look just next to it down there on that white tray, there's a little weep hole down there. That is where the water drains out onto the roof. So it's pretty important to keep this one clean too. You're going to want to do the same process. You're going to get all the loose debris and dust out of here. If you have compressed air, you can use that too. Get that thing free of all the dust and debris. Got your fin combs, go ahead and find any areas that are damaged. For those of you who are paying attention, you might have seen me actually cause this damage when I took the cover off and I squeezed it because I was talking, not paying attention. Now again, luckily for me, this is already a dead unit that I'm just using for example. So I don't really have to pay too much attention to my repair here. Here's a good example of how a fin comb can work though. Again, it's not going to make it perfect again, but those fins are at least straightened out so air can flow through it. Got a couple areas over here. That is very likely where the freeze plug went when this air conditioner was actually still working. So I've got some of those combed out. Again, on this air conditioner, I'm not super worried about it, but on yours, you're gonna wanna make sure. Now, if you do have an area where the freeze plug was, you might wanna leave that spot alone because you're gonna be sticking the freeze plug right back where it went. And then we're gonna do the same thing and we're gonna spray it down with our coil cleaner and we're going to give it its recommended dwell time to sit there and clean it up. After the dwell time, we're gonna go ahead and rinse this one just like we did the other one. You're gonna wanna be a little more careful on this one because this big hole right here is where it leads into the coach, where the cold air blows. So you're gonna wanna be more careful here not to get any water down here and splash it. Now me personally, I usually like to lay a towel on the floor inside the customer's unit because sometimes a little bit of water is unavoidable spraying it down in there, and I don't want this like coil cleaner to drip down and cause any damage to the floor or anything. You can actually see that weep hole in action there, draining off all the water that I'm putting in. Now, if that lower tray down there that the evaporator coil is sitting in looks like it's all blocked up and gunked up and it's going to cause blockage, sometimes it's not always easy to get down underneath there and clean. So Most of these have an option where you can lift up this evaporator coil a bit. Some of them are screwed down, some of them aren't. In my case, I just have a screw on each side to release this coil here. So with those two screws removed, I can carefully lift this up. You're not going to lift it a whole lot because your AC lines are still attached. You can't disconnect those. It's a sealed system. But now I can have access to that tray down there. I can spray a little cleaner in there, help break some stuff up, let it dwell, and then rinse it out. And you can see how well that drains. If you really want to, if you have blockage at that weep hole, you can, stick something down there and remove any blockages you have at that weep hole. Again, don't jerk or play with this too much because you have copper lines that are very thin connecting this to the rest of the system, and you don't want to bend, kink, or damage one of those. But that's just another simple step you can take to make sure that all of this is draining properly and working as it should. So I got that evaporator screwed back down, or secured back into place, I should say. So now we can take that cover and put it back into place and get that fastened down, and then I'm going to show you how you can seal it up a little better than what the manufacturer did so that keep that cold air in here. And in order to seal it better, you're going to need some HVAC tape. Looks like aluminum foil, but it's tape. You can find it at your local hardware store. It's usually by wherever all the ductwork and HVAC stuff is. So you can see they put it on the little corners here. They didn't seal up anything else, and this thing is very far from being airtight. So you're gonna go ahead and clean the surface that you're about to apply that tape to. Now, I'll be honest, I was way too lazy to go walk and get a bottle of cleaner, so I'm just using AC coil cleaner. I don't recommend doing that. Once that area is clean enough that some tape can stick to it, you're going to take that tape and you're going to make 3 sections of tape there. So you're gonna kind of roughly measure that. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Some of these HVAC guys are gonna be mad when I say this. My goal is not to make this stuff pretty. My goal is to make the unit sealed. So I'm not super worried about like little wrinkles and stuff like that. I do try and make it pretty, but it's not my #1 concern. So you're gonna do it just like that, and you're gonna do that for each little length here so that you have an entirely sealed air conditioner, or at least for the most part. There's still plenty of areas where air can be leaking, but you've at least eliminated one of the big ones. I can't tell you how many times I see one of these things running and you can feel ice cold air blowing out through there that should be blowing into your RV. Now, if you're up here and you want to get real wild, I mean, you can go find every different seam that's on this thing and seal all that up. Keep in mind, you'll be redoing this every time you do your RV air conditioner maintenance, but if you really want it to work, these are the extra steps you have to take because they don't build them like they used to. They don't build anything like they used to. Get that little corner I missed before somebody calls me out on it. Yeah, there we go. See what I mean? Doesn't have to be pretty. It's also like aluminum foil, so it kind of conforms to stuff as you push it in there. And I'll be honest, you can go as far as sealing every little crevice you can find on this thing because the more air transfer and loss of cold air and warm air that you can resolve, the better. But again, remember, if next time you go to access this, you're going to be taking all this off again. Don't worry, the tape is cheap. And then you're going to get your cover back on your air conditioner and it's ready to go. The only thing you have to do on the inside of your coach is remove those little screens, not filters, screens from your RV air conditioner shroud and clean those. You should be doing that pretty frequently anyway because the more air you can flow through your air conditioner, the better. That's what this entire process is about, is keeping the RV air conditioner flowing freely so that it can actually cool the air, and then the added steps of trying to seal everything, keeping that cold air in there, keeping it inside the RV where it belongs and not out here in the atmosphere. Like our parents used to say when we left the door open, we're not trying to cool the whole neighborhood, right? Now, if you do this regularly, you can keep your RV air conditioner cooling like it should. And I hope after watching this, you can see that it's pretty easy. Just about anybody can do it. You don't need to pay a technician like myself or a service center to do this. Unless you just physically can't get up on your roof. I understand that I have this on the table. It maybe makes it a little bit easier than getting up on a roof, bringing all the supplies up there and stuff. I understand that that's not for everybody. So hiring someone to do it might not be the worst thing, but as you can see, this is probably something you could even hire a friend to do. It's pretty easy. Again, watch your fingers. I would recommend wearing gloves if you don't do this often. 1, because you're working with chemicals, and 2, because there are a lot of areas on here you can cut yourself, whether it be the fins or just areas of metal that were cut roughly. Even as a tech who does this all the time, I still find myself cutting myself on things like this all the time. So that's why I'm throwing that in there, because it's not like a one-off thing. It happens a lot. There's a lot of sharp pieces in here. If you guys like this video and you want to see some more tech tips, tricks, and even some tours and RVs, make sure you guys are pressing that subscribe button.